On elections, the president says that he wants Republicans to nationalize elections. Do you agree with him? And do you have confidence in how elections are conducted right now, heading into the midterm?
We have thoughtful debate about our election system every election cycle and sometimes in between. We know it's in our system. The states have been in charge of administering their elections. What you're hearing from the president is his frustration about the lack of some of the blue states, frankly, of enforcing these things and making sure that they are free and fair elections. We need constant improvement on that front. I don't know what the ultimate solution is going to be. I'm not going to get ahead of the negotiations here, but I think that is something that's going to be a continuing theme here. It's something that we'll continue to push, and we hope the governors will insist upon that same thing as well. In some of the states, like in California, for example, I mean, they hold the elections open for weeks after Election Day. That's just one thing that bothers so many people. We had 3 House Republican candidates who were ahead on Election Day in the last election cycle. And every time a new tranche of ballots came in, they just magically whittled away until their leads were lost. And no series of ballots that were counted after Election Day were our candidates ahead on any of those counts. It looks on its face to be fraudulent. Can I prove that? No.
Hey, closeted Keebler Elf Mike Johnson. The reason that your candidate might look like they're winning when you've only counted 4% of the vote or 12% of the vote is because all the fucking votes haven't been counted yet. I realize that this is a Republican talking point. Donald Trump used this in 2020 to claim that he was ahead in certain states and then he lost because they hadn't counted all of the votes yet. Donald Trump in the 2020 election wanted states to stop counting when he was ahead. And that is essentially what we're hearing Mike Johnson saying here. This is the Speaker of the House who is openly undermining our free and fair elections. He knows that he and all of the Republicans are going to get their asses handed to them in the midterms if they don't cheat. And they are trying so hard to cheat in every way they possibly can. But these kind of claims are particularly insidious. He seems to be supporting the Department of Justice weaponizing its power to try and get voter rolls, to intimidate states, to try and kick people off the voter rolls, all of the hinky shit that the DOJ is doing, and red state governors and secretaries of state are complying with. But not only that, this kind of rhetoric that you are hearing here doesn't just come from men who are deeply resentful of the fact that they have to be married to a woman because their repressive white supremacist Christo-fascism doesn't allow them to be their true authentic selves. You hear it from those in political power who know that they do not have the support of the people. This is straight up fascist shit. This is the kind of rhetoric, the kind of language you hear from politicians who fully intend to not accept the results of a free and fair election. And there is growing concern that that is what Republicans are planning on doing. Donald Trump definitely wants to do it. They're not going to be able to stop elections. They're going to do everything that they can to intimidate voters, to kick people off the voter rolls, to suppress the vote. And then when they still lose handily, because we're all going to have a huge get out the vote movement that will overcome all of their gerrymandering and voter suppression. When they still lose handily, they're going to say those results are not legitimate. They kept counting all of the votes. Why didn't they stop when Republicans were ahead? Oh, we have to set aside the results of the election. They can't possibly be accurate because we, the fascist GOP, did not win. That is what Mike Johnson is doing. And this is why I get really fucking pissed at people like my congresswoman who continue to talk about their Republican members of Congress as if they are just their colleagues across the aisle. These are full-on fascists who are doing everything they can to dismantle the Constitution, to seize power away from the American people. You can't negotiate. You can't negotiate with people who are intent on holding our rights hostage and then exploding them, obliterating them, annihilating them. They're not your colleagues. They're not in any way negotiating in good faith. They have no interest in upholding the rule of law in the democratic process. Stop calling them your colleagues. When I hear that rhetoric, I become increasingly concerned that when Democrats do gain power again, that they will not hold their fascist colleagues accountable, that there will not be a day of reckoning, that we will end up like the United States in the Reconstruction era, and we'll just end up with whatever this version of Jim Crow is, right? Where there's no justice, there's no accountability. Your colleagues are fascists. They are betraying their oath to the Constitution. Republicans in Congress are betraying their constituents. They are aiding and abetting Donald Trump. They're collaborators with fascism. They are working to dismantle our democracy, to support an ethnic cleansing, the obliteration of the American experiment. They're not your fucking colleagues. They're not your fucking colleagues. Stop legitimizing them. Stop acting like they just have a difference of opinion. Mike Johnson, that's not a difference of opinion. That is a man who is actively laying the groundwork to claim that the results of the midterms should not be respected and duly elected members of Congress should not be seated and the Republicans can just seize power. That's what that whole interview was. That's exactly what the Republicans are planning on doing. Any member of the Republican Party who's not on board with a coup, who's not on board with seizing power and falsely claiming that Republicans have won, who's opposed to the lawful transfer of power. And we know there's plenty of them because we saw what happened in 2020, right? We saw what Josh Hawley and all those folks did. Any of y'all Republicans who are down with this shit, you're a fucking fascist. You're a fucking fascist. I'm sorry, let's just call a fig a fig. You're not a legitimate member of Congress. You are not a representative of your constituents. You're definitely betraying your oath to the Constitution. I'm so tired of hearing Democrats act like Republicans are reasonable. Sorry, I'm flailing my hand. I'm really pissed. Sorry. Also, speaking of sneaky rhetoric and tactics that Republicans are using to try to undermine the public's confidence in free and fair elections, our elections are incredibly fair. Other than the Republican gerrymandering, other than voter suppression, democracy works when Americans show up at the ballot box and are allowed to cast their vote. Any discussion of duly elected representatives should not be seated. That is profoundly un-American, anti-constitutional, and we cannot give any credence to it. We must vigorously speak out against it. And likewise, we have to be on high alert that they are reconstituting this same old lame-ass talking point again.
Citizen voting does happen, even if it is rare, according to some on the left.
How frequent is it?
Well, if you want to list it, I actually have some for you. Hold on one second.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, like actual numbers.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to get to
absolutely.
page 6 or 7
For
to
people,
find them.
I know.
I actually wanted to have a lot of quotes for you guys. All right, here we go. So a Georgia audit found 20 non-citizens registered to vote. 9 of them ended up voting in a previous election.
20?
Yeah,
Nine.
let me finish. In Michigan,
After how many years?
you know, it's funny when you guys mock small amounts, but let's remember that Marionette Miller Meeks won her 2020 election by 6 votes.
Okay.
Imagine if there were 6
Were they
fraudulent
6
votes.
undocumented immigrants?
No,
my
they weren't.
point is that some elections are decided quite literally on the margins,
Sure.
and every vote counts.
But not a
let's-
single
let's-
presidential
wait,
election has been decided by a margin
Can I finish my
non-citizen
point? Can I
voters.
finish my point? That doesn't, just because it doesn't impact a presidential election, does not mean that it is not worthy of attention.
What is the percentage of fraudulent non-citizen voting in America?
I don't have the percentage, but I have more examples if you
percentage
guys
would you
wouldn't cut me off. Let me just finish. Exactly.
I don't know if
Hold
it
on a second. 41 non-citizens cast a
maybe
ballot in North
higher than
Carolina in
1 out of 1
2016.
million.
Okay,
1,500
41.
foreigners registered to vote in California by the state DMV. They were not citizens in 2018.
Oh, did they? And
Did they vote?
were
Did
they
they vote?
caught?
Did they vote?
Actually,
Did they vote?
it
They
doesn't
were
matter
just
if
registered to vote. That doesn't
registering
mean
to
they
vote as a
vote.
non-citizen is legal.
So-
According
I know,
to
but
18
they
U.S.
didn't
Code,
vote.
Section 1015, subsection F says that anyone
Look,
who knowingly makes a false statement when
Hold
registering
on,
to
but
vote
here's the
can
thing.
get jail time.
Here's the thing. I wanted you to go through it because I think it illustrates in and of itself how actually incredibly rare this is. And even when, the Heritage Foundation went looking for non-citizens voting over the course of, 10 plus years, they found 77 cases, actually more than 10 years, about 24 years. They found 77 instances of non-voters voting, and they went looking, okay? So listen, if this were about people, non-citizens voting, maybe that's the case, then please help me explain why Trump is still obsessed with Georgia, where he was looking for 11,000 votes, where Georgia, they've got voter ID, they've got tough voting laws.
Okay, 1, Abby Phillip is great. She handled that masterfully. 2, CNN and other corporate media platforms that are run by billionaires that love Donald Trump, they love MAGA. They have done so much harm in our society. They have sane-washed and platformed fringe radicals on the right who are propagandists spewing misinformation, not doing legitimate journalism at all. Putting them on a panel with legitimate pundits and experts and acting like their opinions, their lies, their propaganda are somehow credible by association. That's a big part of why we're here now and why it's so important that we, the people, push back against these election lies.